And we'll finish that cut right there, 4 pieces, 7.5 inches long. Next project. Oh yeah, they only made about 10 more of these after they made this one in that 10 horsepower series. I have them here in Middle Tennessee. Geographical center of something. Shot dog sound. Well, the task being at hand was this angle on. Oh yeah, we got them 4 pieces cut right there. So now the situation arises that I need to make a box out of these in such a manner as this. So I would need to 45 those in order to have a fit up right there, but I don't think this project warrants that. I think I'm just going to weld that up. Scrap for sure. That'll work. And the important dimension is 7 inches is the size of the cylinder. So what I got right there is like 7 1/4. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll be all right there. And it's also 7 1/4 across this way. So be strong too. Just saying. Well, if you do the math on that, when you overlap that, then that's exactly that amount this way, like this, which is 7 3/4, and it only needs to be 7 1/4. So that being this measurement, so I'm just going to cut 2 more. Okay. You know, a lot of times here on quite often, I'll be working on something and I'll turn it in for grade. Well, yeah, I think I was kind of thinking about what I'm doing here and why. And you know, this is not a gas engine anymore. It's a piece of art at some point. You know, it's never intended to be a gas engine other than a novelty of the disarray of the parts on it. But and this shop built rocker arm here, I consider I'm not turning this in for grade. If I can challenge my viewers, I'm not going to turn this part here, this whole mechanism, this whole engine. It's going to be like, I don't know what you call it in college terms, maybe a thesis or a major, something where you're going to turn it in for the test. It's something in college when you do something, and then once you do that, I guess you could like turn it in for grade. You know, at the end there's a test. You know, I've been turning stuff in for grade, so now I'm gonna turn something in for test. That being this engine in its totality, its being reverse running, hit and miss ignition, modification on the head and such, and this valve mechanism. And I'm going to present this as is. I mean, I'm going to sand on a little bit, but the metal finish, I mean, the shape, all of it, it's. I like it. So I'm going to turn this in as in my test, and that being, I'm going to put that whole engine together here in a couple of days. I've just been fooling around listening to the radio, but I'm going to go ahead and put it together. And in this thesis, this major, this whatever it is, I'm turning this in under grade, under test. I mean, not grade test, which in itself is a grade, I think, accumulation of all the passive ones of them. But the engine is supposed to start and run on the first time it's intended to. So with that in mind, and there's a story with it, imagination. You know, just imagine this engine that there was a time period between I'll show you something. One of these old M's. When you're setting up the timing on your rocker arm, this being a typical setup, And I have the cam back there positioned. That cam with the lobe is pointing that way, so that means that I'm on the back side of the cam, which puts this push rod back as far as it can go. I found that if you set, I'm going to adjust this in a little bit here, because I would like to have some more, I would like to even up my adjustment. So, when it's all said and done, this right here will be one piece, move like this, once I get it tightened up. Call that a rocker arm. For the exhaust valve, aspirated intake. But shop fabricated parts. And the object was to get this rocker arm and center line on that push rod a little bit to the top to compensate on a little bit of wear downwards, if it ever happened. But with that cam position on that backside of that lobe gunner, when you, even this works, this is for a original unmodified engine, is the same measurement. But the distance between this rocker arm and the end of that shaft right there, push rod, is about 5/16 or 3/8. And at the same time, I'm maintaining adjustments on that side of that and on this side also. I'd probably like to have a little more. This inward, that way I can adjust it that way and still have quite a bit this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that about right there. You know, that's about how much it's supposed to be. And then I need to tighten that set screw back there. And there was an indent on this shaft that I made here where I had tightened it up when I fabricated it. So, and it fell where I could, when I was turning this, I felt it fall into that set screw mark. So, that being a good thing, I think. But, and I want both of them on the back side of there. I think it's tight enough that I can turn this completely around. And now I can tighten this up. For real. Because this can't move. Yeah, operation. Would be a one-piece unit on this unmodified engine. I think that's sufficient. That was past tight. And I put this spacer in here like this right here. And then, so I maintained that. Now, the adjustment on this engine is same as factory. Just when this leaves the end of the rocker arm by 1/1000ths would be the correct setting. And there's a cotter goes here. There'll be a little spacer washer and a cotter. I'll have to get one to keep this from rising back up out of there. Just everything works. Now it's all locked together. I tied this up earlier. So to see if it's in time, let's see. To time an engine that has not ever been timed before, you have to think backwards. If you're going to time this engine, it runs in counterclockwise direction because of the timing. So what I came up with with this valve setting that's never been adjusted, going by the 3/8 spout right there. This is what I came up with on this timing. When you come around, and let's open that up just like we was going to start it. This is on a preliminary setting. But you come around on and you will note that there's no ignition at all on this engine. We're only working with the exhaust. So in order to get there, we have to know where the ignition is at. So to find that, you turn the engine in the direction of running till you come up on right there. See, that was compression. You turn it to where the engine comes to compression, which is right there. See, it comes up on compression. I've just got it mocked up here, but it'll be okay for what we're doing. But it's on compression. Okay, the engine should fire, if it had ignition, a few degrees before top dead center, or at top dead center. Top dead center being opposite of the keyway on this engine. So if you turn it on around to right there, this engine's on top dead center. You don't have to take the spark plug out, you just go by this keyway straight across that way. The throw is completely opposite of that. So the engine should have fired a few degrees, I backed it up, before top dead center. The next revolution will be the exhaust. Note that it's all free because ignition's taking place. And now piston's coming on back around to exhaust. Comes on around, and when it gets right here, that piston's going back up yonder to push that exhaust. You know, it's already doing it. I'm gonna back up a little bit. It started doing it right there. Okay, the important part is where this valve closes at. It should be about top dead center, a few degrees before that. So coming on around and noting all at the same time as to where this push rod leaves the rocker arm. That's the measurement. This is a position. So coming on around, see, I'm right where I need to be, but the gap's too much in there. So I'm gonna have to adjust it. See, I'm just a few degrees before top dead center. Right there is where I'd like for it to be. So I'll adjust that. But I'm going to, if y'all, I think about right there is where it should be. So you see this, what I'm watching up here, you see when I come back, okay, it came up there like that, and now I want to adjust it. I want to adjust it to where that just leaves there. So okay, oh, that's perfect. You see that little bit? There's something there. You can see daylight in there, but not much when you move that. So that's exactly right here is where this is in relationship to top dead center, and I think it should be on up this way, possibly one tooth on the cam. If that comes into play on this engine, I modified that camshaft to the point I think I can pull it out of sync, move it one tooth, put it back in, and reduced it without taking anything apart. That's the way I designed it. And it may come into play where I would want to do that. But, so, now at this point, on this here, I could mark the flywheel right down here in relationship. I say I don't have a mark back there either. So I'm not going to put one on here. I'm just going to rely on this here position right here. But that's the way you, and all I need to do is tighten up that set screw. We're ready to go. And if you keep traveling in this direction, when this cam came on the lowest part of the lobe, that gap there is the 3/8 again. Airplane overhead. It could be a Cessna. I think there's some odds are to what kind it is, even to the engine. Everything's all right here in Middle Tennessee. But the engine at hand is this mechanism, rocker arm assembly, that I came up with for this hit and miss type M, such as it is there, and how it works. That being the rotation of the engine and the firing cycle of a 4-cycle engine. It's pretty simple. Now there being, I show to you, is you just grasp the flywheel, so to speak, and give it a turn in the direction of rotation. So being that I'm building this in backwards, it's going to turn counterclockwise. So I would turn these flywheels, and when I feel a restriction, some pressure that I'm, I'll show it to you. Okay, see right there, I came up on what you call compression. That was the cycle when it exhausted, and then it did the part of the 4-cycle these engines are. Only dealing with the exhaust at this point, not the ignition. But the ignition sets the tune for the exhaust. So going in the direction of way this engine going to run, coming on around like this right here, the engine has compression, and I'm going past it to the point that the flywheel keyway is to the rear. And on these M's, International McCormick Deering type, means the throw on the crankshaft is to the front, meaning that piston up there is to top dead center. At that point, the engine should ignite the spark plug, combustion take place. That's ignition point, and that's when the ignition part of this comes into play. Later on, we'll put the ignition on it. But right now, the way you know if you got your exhaust valve set correctly is it's supposed to close. When you come on around here, I'll show you something. In the same rotation, you come on around. To the point that when this push rod right here leaves that rocker arm, it's supposed to be like 1/1000. It's nothing more than a whisper. You can see light between the two. And that is in correlation to where your keyway is on your crankshaft in relationship to top dead center. There being, I'm going to turn it a little bit more and put the engine onto top dead center. So coming on around, but I want that rocker arm and that push rod to leave each other a few thousandths before top dead center. So rocking it back and forth, watching that rocker arm and that push rod, you see when the least movement, that's about a thousandth just looking at it from back here. And then coming back around here and looking at the keyway, it's pretty close to being straight backwards. So it's where it should be. If anything, there's enough adjustment left onto the adjustment screw here to take up any discrepancy that is in the system, and that's what that's for. So at this point, we got the exhaust valve set, and now the next step is to put the ignition on it, and you can see. Where's it at? Between that flywheel and that crankcase right there, you can see a bracket up in there I done been working on, and I'm gonna put a little set of contacts on there, and it will contact a buzz coil and a battery, and we'll be off and running. I'm here in Mills, Tennessee. Shop Dog Sound.